We want to start big, though, with the news that the Supreme Court has gone against President Donald Trump, saying that he has exceeded his powers in many of those tariff decisions he made. Now, not all of them. This, of course, gets very complicated. That's why we have our resident expert. This is Dr. Michael Bitzer from Catawba College. Dr. Bitzer, thank you so much for joining us again.
It's good to be with you.
Well, I want to start big picture for those who haven't seen the news yet. What happened today from the Supreme Court?
Supreme Court issued what is a pretty monumental case in regards to the separation of powers concept within our federal government, basically saying the president cannot, by using a particular law, simply make tariffs on his own. He does not have that power. That power lies with Congress. Now, there is some wiggle room because there are some other laws that the president can utilize potentially that they acknowledge. But for the most part, what Trump has done in terms of all of these tariffs that he has imposed, taken off, reimposed, those are congressional powers. Those are powers that belong to Congress. And the president, by default, cannot utilize those powers. He has to go to Congress to get those types of powers to issue tariffs.
And I think that's an incredibly important distinction you made, that this is a specific act that he used to impose some of these tariffs, but that doesn't mean there's an end to presidential tariffs here.
Right, and I think what we'll see is probably the next bite at the apple for the Trump administration to start to impose tariffs. You know, the president is very keen on utilizing tariffs to get what he wants, and he is somebody who is kind of out of the norm of American presidents in recent modern time to really utilize tariffs against other countries for what he sees as slights or wrongs that the other countries may have imposed on the United States. He simply slaps tariffs on them. That is not a power that the president has per the U.S. Supreme Court at this time.
Now, I know we're expecting President Trump to speak soon. Anything that you expect to hear from him today? I know you mentioned, the next bite at the apple. What do you expect his response to be?
Well, I think he'll be defiant. I think he will, whenever somebody or some institution of government has told him, no, you can't do that, he pretty much lashes out and says, well, I'll find a way to do it. So I would not be surprised if he takes the court to task. Several of the justices that he appointed ruled against him, and he is not somebody that takes being told no very lightly. So I think what he will do is say, I'm going to find my way to do this. I'm going to take what they say and really study it, but then try and use some of the language that they wrote to be able to go about imposing these tariffs. What will be interesting to see is how does Congress react to this? Do Republicans acknowledge that they and they alone have the power to really kind of impose the types of tariffs that he wants? Or will they try and give that power to him in terms of being able to lay these tariffs down? It's anybody's guess what the president will do, and that's kind of the normal day-to-day operations I think a lot of us operate under.
Do we have any updated information on how the public, and North Carolinians in particular, feel about tariffs?
Well, we actually, in the Catawba YouGov survey from last January, asked about this issue and asked about North Carolinians' feelings about their confidence in the Trump decision-making, how he went about imposing these tariffs. And it's actually a very split dynamic at play in North Carolina public opinion. 47% said that they were not confident in the president's decision-making when it comes to tariffs. 38% said that they were confident, but there is a clear, as North Carolina politics does, partisan divide over this particular issue. If you ask Republicans, are you confident in the president's handling of tariffs? 78% said yes, I'm confident or very confident. If you ask Democrats, 76% said, no, I am not confident. It's the independents that tend to lean against the president, 50% saying that they weren't confident, 30% saying that they are confident. So slightly more against the president on tariffs overall, but there is a very clear partisan divide, and independents, like on other issues, seem to be moving against the president.
And I think that is what makes this decision so interesting, too. As you mentioned, some of the judges that he appointed went against him. I do want to point out, though, 6-3 ruling in the dissent. Justice Brett Kavanaugh said the decision probably would not restrict presidential tariff authority going forward, but it would create a mess for the government in terms of refunds. Do you have any idea what that mess might look like at this point?
I think we're all kind of in uncharted territory at this point. I think what companies will start to demand is their money back for having to pay for these tariffs, how they will get passed on back to the consumer, because ultimately it was the consumer paying the tariffs. It was not the foreign country. It was not foreign corporations. It was Americans buying foreign products that then had the tariffs on them. So whether the companies will get the money back, whether consumers will get the money back, I think Justice Kavanaugh did point out something that the majority did not attend to in that 170-page total of opinions on this issue, and that will be something I think that will be continue to be litigated over some time.
Anything else that I haven't asked you that you think people may need to know about this landmark decision?
Yeah, I think certainly for North Carolina, the number of international corporations that are in this state and have a presence that hire North Carolinians as workers, there will probably be some relief in terms of this dynamic, but I wouldn't put too much on the president trying another tactic, another way around this. It may be a little more complicated for him to not just stroke his signature across an executive order, but he may have to go through some real logistical, procedural dynamics. But I would suspect the president's going to try this again to impose tariffs, and we may see this litigation yet again kind of rise up through the courts and potentially back in the Supreme Court in the next several months, if not year.
Well, I mean, the timing, too, as we look at the 2026 elections, is going to be very impactful, I'm sure.
Yes, and economics is always at the forefront of voters' decision-making and who they're going to vote for. This will continue this issue forefront in the minds of a lot of North Carolinians, I'm afraid.
Well, Dr. Bitzer, always appreciate your insight. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about this.